What's up, Tucson? How the hell are you? God, I've missed you. This is the 5 on 20 News with Luc Goodhart coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. It is Wednesday, November 8th. Let's talk local headlines. Arizona is one of a number of states who have proposed work requirements in order to receive Medicaid coverage. The Trump administration announced yesterday that they will encourage states to pursue these work requirements. This marks a departure from the Obama administration's approach to such requests, as they claimed that they were inconsistent with Medicaid's mission of providing health care to low-income people. Under the Affordable Care Act, states can expand Medicaid to anyone making up to 138% of the federal poverty level, which is currently about $16,600 per year. 11 million people have gained coverage who would not otherwise have been eligible. Seema Verma, administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, said that she would be willing to fast-track, would someone get that? Approvals for work requirements. She said that allowing states to impose work requirements will ensure that low-income people will bring themselves out of poverty. In a speech yesterday, Verma criticized the Obama administration's opposition to work requirements. She said that, quote, believing that community engagement requirements do not support or promote the objectives is a tragic example of the soft bigotry of low expectations espoused by the prior administration. Or maybe the previous administration had a more nuanced and compassionate perspective on why certain people are more likely to be in poverty to begin with. But nah, let's just stick with the catchy poor people are just plain lazy explanation. So far, Arizona, Arkansas, Indiana, Kentucky, New Hampshire, Maine, Utah, and Wisconsin have submitted requests to impose work requirements to be eligible for Medicaid. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, however, most people on Medicaid are already working. What? Poor people actually work? The organization found that about 59% of non-disabled adults on Medicaid who are under 65 years old have jobs. Among those not working, 18% were in school, 8% could not find a job, another 8% were retired, 35% were ill or disabled, and 25% were taking care of their families. CMS rolled out their advertising campaign for the work requirement push with the warm and sympathetic slogan, "Get a job, your family can take care of themselves." Arizona Congresswoman Martha McSally will seek a U.S. Senate seat to replace Republican Jeff Flake, according to Arizona Representative David Schweikert. McSally and her staff have dodged questions about a run in recent years, but it's largely speculated that she would end up running in 2018. Flake announced last month that he would not seek re-election, saying in a Senate floor speech that he, quote, will not be complicit or silent about the increasingly divided political climate. Flake was targeted by Trump supporters and the president himself, who called Flake toxic when he visited Phoenix earlier this year. Despite raising $4 million for his campaign, Flake faced a tough challenge from Republican candidate Kelly Ward, who is backed by Trump, former White House advisor Steve Bannon, and the Tea Party. McSally has shown herself to be an equally capable fundraiser, pulling in millions for her Southern Arizona congressional races. But she faces a tougher challenge for her seat in 2018 as she goes up against Democrat Ann Kirkpatrick, a former Flagstaff congresswoman who took on Senator John McCain last year. Besides Ward and McSally, Treasurer Jeff DeWitt and former Arizona State Republican Chairman Robert Graham will also be vying for Flake's abandoned seat. Democrat Kristen Sinema is also running for Senate, along with Democrat Deidre Aboud, a Phoenix activist. If elected to the Senate, McSally promises to remain just as bland and unlikable as she's been in the House. Tucson Unified School District was among 800 websites hacked over the weekend with what appeared to be Islamic State propaganda. The school's site was taken over by pictures of Saddam Hussein and the King of Saudi Arabia, which appeared on about 800 school district websites. TUSD staff said that the images were taken down and that their technical staff discovered a small file inserted into the root of their website. They said that they are working with the FBI on tracking the source of the hack and hope to gain insight through further analysis. U of A professor Faten Gosen said he doesn't believe that it was actually the work of ISIS, because she said that ISIS propaganda is normally well thought out and organized. She said that these hackers didn't have a strategy and it just seemed to be random. She added there is no need to be alarmed because there was, quote, nothing here about a recruitment strategy, and that panic just plays into what they want us to do. Don't worry, Gosen, this is America, where we always treat these situations with thoughtful reflection and nuance. Steve Kozaczek, Paul Durham, and Richard Fimbres were the big winners in the Tucson City Council elections yesterday, as several referendums were defeated. Durham defeated independent challenger Gary Watson by a healthy 59 to 40% win. Fimbres ran unchallenged, and Steve Kozaczek was re-elected, beating Republican Mariano Rodriguez and the Green Party's Mike Cease. Several propositions were also on the ballot, and the results were a mixed bag. Prop 202, which would authorize a temporary sales tax to fund improvements to the Reed Park Zoo, passed 52 to 48%. However, Prop 203, which would have amended the city's code to implement the tax, is too close to call. This means that the sales tax raise is in limbo until the election is called, which should happen in the next day or so. Prop 204, which would provide high-quality preschool to low-income families, was defeated by a 66 to 34 margin. The referendum would have resulted in a 0.5% sales tax to fund the education initiative, and you know how we feel about education funding in Tucson. So I guess this means we're kind of lukewarm about imprisoning animals that probably shouldn't be here, but we're really against childhood education. Speaking of which, Prop 458, a plan to fund TUSD by issuing school improvement bonds, also failed. And it looks like Mayor Jonathan Rothschild is not getting a raise this year. Prop 406, which would have given the mayor more than $2,200 raise per month, while the city council members would get a $1,000 raise per month. So it's back to eating ramen, Mr. Mayor. Sorry. And I wanted to take a moment to talk about the program you are watching right now. Here at 5 on 20, we are undertaking a new kind of citizen journalism. We're going to give you the news as we see it, and we want more people to speak up with us. We need writers, hosts, anchors, camera people, sound people, the whole gamut. The times require a new way of informing ourselves, so join us. Do it now. Email us at info@creativetucson to get involved. And if you think there's a story we're missing, a person we should interview, an upcoming event we should cover, or have any news tips for us, shoot an email to info@creativetucson.org. We are here for you, and we want to cover all stories from all points of view. So don't be strangers. Now in national and international news. Democrat Ralph Northam won a closely watched gubernatorial race in Virginia that was seen as a referendum on Donald Trump's presidency. Northam defeated former Republican Chairman Ed Gillespie, who had no governing experience but was backed by the president. On Tuesday morning, Trump sent out a series of tweets claiming that Northam supported sanctuary cities and warning that Virginia would be overrun by MS-13 gang members. But the scare tactics didn't appear to work, as Northam won by over 200,000 votes in a state that has become increasingly blue in recent years. In response, Trump tweeted that, quote, Ed Gillespie worked hard but did not embrace me or what I stand for. Polls in the final days showed a tight gap between Gillespie and Northam, the incumbent lieutenant governor. Along with heavy support from the president, Virginia voters told The Intercept that they received robocalls telling them that their polling places had changed. Harry Wiggins, chair of the Prince William County Democratic Committee, told The Intercept that voters started alerting him on Friday about the calls, which targeted the swing county. He said that 32 voters had received the calls. Exit polls indicated that college-educated white voters turned out at higher levels than 2016 to reject Trump and back Northam. In addition to Northam, Democrat Danica Roem defeated Republican Rob Marshall, an outspoken social conservative who unsuccessfully sponsored a so-called bathroom bill in the state legislature. Roem is the first openly transgender state lawmaker, making it sting that much more. Marshall came under fire during the campaign for refusing to call Roem she or her. What a dick. After his defeat, Marshall spent the night sobbing in a bathroom stall. Ah, poetic justice. Elsewhere in New Jersey, Democrat Phil Murphy easily beat Republican Lieutenant Governor Kim Guadagno for the governor's race. Outgoing Governor Chris Christie suffered from the lowest approval ratings of any governor in the country. This was partly as a result of Christie using a beach that was closed to the public during Hurricane Irene and produced some of the most disgusting photos in recent memory. Democrat Larry Krasner also won Philadelphia's district attorney's race on Tuesday, which was a huge surprise. Krasner is a former defense attorney who is considered to be a long shot because he lacked political or prosecutorial experience or establishment support. However, he was supported by progressive causes and benefited from the fractured Democratic field. Another surprise was the overwhelming approval to expand Medicaid in Maine. The state's voters approved the measure by a 58 to 41% margin, becoming the 32nd state to expand Medicaid. Signed into law, 80,000 Maine residents below 133% of the federal poverty line would be eligible for the state's Medicaid program. But that's a big if, because Maine Governor Paul LePage said this morning that he would not expand the program until the state finds a way to pay for it. This is the same LePage that suggested bringing back the guillotine for those convicted of drug trafficking. Yeah. In a statement, LePage said that, quote, credit agencies are predicting that this fiscally irresponsible Medicaid expansion will be ruinous to Maine's budget. However, he provided no evidence of these claims and appeared to confuse credit agencies with his inner voice. The World Health Organization is backing a campaign to cut the use of antibiotics in pigs, chickens, cattle that are raised for meat. WHO is calling on governments to follow the example of Denmark and the Netherlands, which have banned the use of these drugs to make animals grow faster or protect healthy animals from getting sick. In a statement, WHO said the overuse and misuse of antibiotics has occurred in both human medicine and on farms. The organization also issued their first guidelines for how these drugs should be used on farms. According to the guidelines, antibiotics should not be used to promote faster growth or merely to prevent disease in healthy animals. They called on veterinarians to avoid the use of antibiotics that are most critical in human health. The guidelines are stricter than those enforced by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, who have worked with drug manufacturers to ban antibiotics to promote growth, but still allows vets to prescribe drugs for disease prevention. China will likely face the brunt of the new guidelines if they are adopted, since they are home to more than half of the world's pigs and where antibiotics are used more heavily than the U.S. However, even China is changing their attitude, as they now require that some antibiotics only be used in animals if they are prescribed by a veterinarian. U.S. companies are also getting tougher, with McDonald's promising to buy only chickens from suppliers who have stopped using drugs that are most important in human medicine. The policy will go into effect starting next year for suppliers in the U.S. and Europe. But not everyone is for the new policy. The National Pork Producers Council unsurprisingly condemned the WHO's proposal. They said the ban is, quote, antithetical to pork farmers and veterinarians' moral obligation to care for their pigs. Although it's hard to take that statement seriously when we live in a world where bacon-flavored condoms exist. Blech. The credit agency Fitch Ratings said that the Republican tax reform plan would balloon the deficit and give only a temporary boost to the economy. The House plan aims to reshape the U.S. tax code and reduces corporate tax rate from 35% to 20%. Senate Republicans are expected to unveil their own tax bill this week, and there's hints that it could look much different than the House version. Already, Republican Senators Ted Cruz and Rand Paul have expressed concerns that the House bill could raise taxes on middle-class Americans. Along with tax cuts for corporations, small businesses, and wealthy Americans, the bill would also reduce or eliminate tax breaks that benefit many in the middle class. This includes a popular tax break for residents of high-tax states such as New York and California. Fitch predicted that the plan would win passage in both chambers, but it wouldn't provide long-term benefits. Government analysts weren't much more optimistic. Congress's Joint Committee on Taxation, or the JCT, said that the House bill would add nearly $1.5 trillion to the national debt from 2018 through 2027. The national debt now exceeds $20 trillion, which Republicans used to think was a big deal. The JCT study also estimated that the House bill could raise taxes on as many as 38 million people who earn between $20,000 and $40,000 per year, beginning in 2023. But to put a silver lining on this, with the way things are going, we might not even have a world in 2023. So, I don't know. No big deal. This was 5 on 20 News with Luc Goodhart. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to all of our social media accounts. And feel free to shoot us an email at info@creativetucson.org. Thanks for watching, and stay creative, Tucson.